Everybody, and welcome to yet another episode of How'd You Like That Movie? Tonight, we are going to be talking about the 2020 thriller horror film Antebellum. And that's Antebellum, not Annabella or whatever Scott thought it was. Before I throw you over to Scott, though, I do want to bring up the fact that this movie has a bunch of twists in it and some kind of important ones. We're going to do the best to not spoil anything, but I mean, if you've ever listened to our show, we fuck that up on a regular basis. So anyway, Scott, so we're going to talk about Antebellum. And what was the movie that you thought I was saying?
Well, the way you spelt it originally, I thought you were doing Annabelle, and then I asked you, "Are we doing Annabelle Origins? Annabelle Comes Home? Which
And
one?"
I laughed.
Well, it's as much as you did in terms of your quote for this movie, because a written line from an author that starts the movie isn't
Whoa,
really a
isn't that a
quote.
quote? Was it in
No,
quotation marks?
no, it's like, if we ever do Star Wars, my thing's just gonna be, long ago on a galaxy far, far away. The Death Star,
All
Episode
right,
5.
fuck you. Fuck you. I told you I had two, so I'll satisfy your need for like a real quote. Um, the
With
unsolved
conviction.
the unsolved past can certainly wreak havoc on the present. Now, Scott, take us away.
I'll say, how am I
You
gonna
think we're
put
gonna be able to
this?
talk about this movie without spoiling the ending?
I don't think it's the ending, just in terms of the, like, I
Or the
think this,
twist or the turn
yeah,
or
like,
whatever.
I think your little warning at the beginning is perfect, because odds are, like,
Yeah, it is.
talking about it, we are gonna spoil this. Listen, if you have a Prime membership, just fucking go watch it from there, right? Because it's on there.
It
You
is
don't have
on
to
there.
rent it. You don't have to rent it, so we're not making you spend money. But
So
um,
would you before you move on, what would you classify this movie as? Is it a thriller? Is it a horror? I mean, it definitely lends itself to you think it might be a bit supernatural, depending on how far into the film you are. So I don't know. What would you consider this genre wise? It's radio, man. You
see,
got to talk.
no, well, it's the gears moving, and that's the thing. Like, to me and you, this isn't a horror, right? Like, it is like a thriller, whatever. But depending, if you are a Black American, like, this is a horror movie, right? All
Well,
of a sudden,
yeah. I mean, if you're a Black American, I think every day tends to turn itself into a bit of a horror movie.
but yeah, like, I was reading this, like, this whole film is based on the director Gerald Bush. It was just a dream he had. He thought it would be a really good short film, and then they literally made it into a theatrical movie, which I'm sure you're going to talk about editing and cutting down and shit. But
I mean, this film is an hour and 46 minutes. It's 106 minutes long. It's not long by any stretch of the imagination. I do feel like I don't want to say it bogs down. It's you know what? Honestly, it's perfectly fine in its length. The center there when and how do I? Okay, spoiler alert. When they're in the like before the kidnapping, I'll put it that way. It feels a bit slow and a bit sluggish. I don't know. One of my big criticisms with this film is I felt like the dialogue was probably one of the weakest parts. It has amazing cinematography, great music design or sound design. Sorry, the music scoring was good. I was actually there. When she is getting kidnapped in the SUV, whatever that track that's playing. I'm like I've gotta Shazam that, man. It's fucking awesome. I'm like, that's such a banging song. Yeah, so banging it banged her head against the wall. So I mean, the regular editing as far as the composition was fine. But yet, okay. So this movie, tell me how you feel about this. This film has a 29% critic rating, 29, and a 52% audience rating. I mean, I actually left myself a note. Like, I don't know why this film's rated so low. Like, it's not. I mean, it's not a 90 percentile kind of film, but fucking 29. I want to hear your rationale behind that, and
I
I
think
think I know why, or I have some ideas of why it got such a low rating.
for me, I think it's more the marketing of this film.
Okay.
Like if you watch the trailer, it pretty much gives majority of this movie away. It's one of those that like they didn't hold anything back in the trailer,
Okay.
right? You see what's happening in terms of the story, in which it kind of watching the film and the way it starts, and then interweaves from present to past, right? If they didn't have any of that in the trailer already, I think it would have worked more. If you're already going in knowing what
Like
pretty
the
much the
premises and
twist,
kind of like what that turn is, if you already kind of know what that is, it kind of
and
takes away some of the mystery.
not only the mystery, like it's one of those things like majority, not majority, I'll say, but some of the bigger scenes are in this trailer. Like her coming out of the fire pit holding the thing is in the trailer.
Oh man, that sucks. That's
Yeah,
fucking that's some bad editing is what that is.
yeah, like the well, it wasn't really in the film, but the plane in the sky and them looking like picking
Yes.
the cotton and seeing the plane, right? That is in the trailer, so you already kind of go in knowing, right? And I think this could have been a way better version of M Night
The
Shyamalan's
Village.
Village,
That's what I
right?
thought
Like
too. Like when
I like this.
that was the comparison I made too. Is it had that? Well, it definitely is that kind of film, but it had like I was like that was the first place I went to. I was like, oh my god, this is like The Village. I mean, I
But I
like The
think
Village
this
too.
one's better. I think this one's better than The Village, personally.
Sure. So one of the things I thought that
Sure, you're like, sure, fuck you. You like The Village? You thought The Village was fucking
I
better?
thought The Village was good. I think I mean this was good as well. I mean, uh, I, I think that one of the problems is that so if you okay, and normally we don't talk too much about producers on this, but so the directors Jared Bush and Christopher Rentz, this is their first feature. Okay, they also wrote the screenplay. Other than that, but before this, they worked together on short films, Shame, The Glass House, and Versus. They also did music videos for Jay-Z and Duke Dumont, and they did some other music video stuff. So I mean, not a bad. I just want to give them credit. Not bad for a first time out of the gate doing a feature. But I think the expectations were high because the producers Raymond Mansfield and Sean McKendrick, they worked on Black Klansman together and Get Out, right? And then Sean, actually I missed out his last name, Micktrick. He also worked on Us, right? So you've already got kind of this body of work behind you, and we're gonna get into the cast. You got a great cast, you got a great concept, and I think that people set the bar too high, so they couldn't go in and just be like, that was an entertaining film. You know what I mean? They had these big expectations, and they didn't reach it. But I mean, these guys, this is their first feature film. And I think maybe having those really high expectations just because of the production staff on board maybe did them a disservice. That's kind of my takeaway from some of the reading I did. I don't know how you feel
Yeah,
about that.
I think also in terms of what I was saying with the marketing too, like people were thinking it was more Jordan Peele involved in this film than anybody else, right?
Yes, that's a very good point, actually.
So finding out after like that he has nothing to do with it when it's kind of being suggested a lot that he does, probably swayed people to the negative. But I'll give this for the directors, like that opening of this film where it's that long
Tracking
tracking
shot?
shot
Yes.
just following everything that's going on was beautiful.
Well, I
It
even
was
like how so they actually don't even track all the time. The camera will move around a building, and then the character will come around the building and they'll catch up and stuff. Like that's some beautiful steady cam work. Like this, the DOP on this, Pedro Luca, he did Don't Breathe, Extinction, The Girl in the Spiderweb. He did a fantastic job. Like the cinematography and like I said, there's some amazing like cinematic shots. Like you said, there's a ton of great tracking shots. The like that shot actually again when there's the two SUVs And the protagonist, Janelle Monáe, who plays Veronica and slash Eden, when she's getting kidnapped, and then her friends are in the other SUV, but just the way they shoot it, it's like the camera kind of comes into them, and then you suddenly like they're equal, they're side by side, and then the other car takes a turn. I don't know, I can't explain it on the radio, but it's just like just really, really coolly shot driving scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you see the friends just partying, and then
Yes.
they
Yeah.
and then they turn, and yeah, like it's the one thing that I don't know if it was ever really stated, like how long was she missing for? Like how long was she kidnapped for? Because she became
That's a good
like,
question, because the only time frame you get is 6 weeks later, and that's like still you're already in the compound, and then it's so, but you don't know how long she's been there up until then.
yeah, because at that point, like when we start, she's one of the senior um
Slaves.
yeah
Like
senior
that's what
slaves.
they are. They're slaves.
Yeah. She was one of the senior slaves. But yeah, I think she did an amazing job, Janelle Monáe. Like I very much enjoyed when it was like not in when she was with her best friend and they're like chit chatting and doing the little dancings.
Do you
Like,
mean was Gabourey Sidibe
mhm,
from Precious?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, when they're going back and oh, when they're going back and forth, and then she would be talking, and then Janelle like do a little like dance, like yeah, and then she'd be like, when she was like, oh, make sure you're not wearing like your mom's clothes or something like that. She comes out in the dress, and she was like, how's that looking? Like it seemed like they played it well, that like, these were lifelong friends, right? Just interacting. And I thought the one guy that Jack Houston, who played like, would you consider him
Jasper.
the villain? No, but would you consider him the villain?
Well, wouldn't him and Elizabeth kind of be co-villains?
But the they weren't the leader of the group. That's
They weren't, but they're the ones that did, like they're the primary characters that the audience is really attached to, except for the general, right?
Yeah. Like I'll say this, like I was rooting. I was waiting for him to get his comeuppance. Like I'm like, when this motherfucker gonna get killed?
And did
Like,
you again, not to spoil how it happens, but did you like the way it happened?
no,
What
to
would
be
you have
honest,
preferred?
because I think he
Like more
needed.
bloody, more like
Yeah,
Django
like
style?
I think in terms of
Django!
okay, like in terms of everything that he projected onto everybody else, right? Like how she did it, I enjoyed, but yeah, like it wasn't really focused on a lot, right? Like it happened and then boom, like you never felt his suffering.
Yeah, there was definitely some criticism that I read online in both the reviews as well as just some of the comments, that the ending kind of like you get to the ending and then you expect kind of more, and it's very anticlimactic, right? Like kind of what you're talking about, like the amount of suffering and all of that. You're like, yeah, fucking revenge film, and then it's sort of like, boop, done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like I'm gonna go on horseback for a while. But I will say this because we did mention it, Star Wars earlier. Those stormtroopers in Star Wars could give these Confederate people some lessons on shooting. Because how do you have, what do you have, like an AK-47 just going and couldn't hit somebody that was like 20 paces ahead of them?
I mean, but then that would wreck the movie.
But even still, I'm like, these guys are some pretty fucking bad shots. I'm like, at first I thought,
Well,
I'm like, oh,
remember, they're not real Confederate soldiers, right?
yeah, but they had AK-47s.
Yeah, but they're clearly just fucking.
And it wasn't like she was zigzagging. She was going straight
This
the
is
whole
true.
time. It was just a straight beam.
So that's your big plot hole, is not being able to shoot properly in the movie.
Or, these people end up turning into. This is the gene pool that builds the stormtroopers and later end, right?
So did you know? Okay, so Janelle Monáe plays Veronica Eden. Did you know anything about her before this film?
If I'm
Like
not,
she's a singer, songwriter, rapper, actor, record producer, and model. She's got 8 Grammy nods. She's a model for CoverGirl, and she's been in Moonlight, Hidden Figures, Harriet, and The Glorias. But Moonlight and Hidden Figures, like those are 2 big fucking movies. But 8 Grammy nominees, man. Like I was not aware of this artist until I was doing my background for the show.
no, I remembered her from Hidden Figures.
Because she's one of the lead characters in Hidden Figures.
Yeah, and then what was Lady and the Tramp?
Oh yeah, she's a
Has my
voice. She did some
kids,
voice acting as well.
And if I'm not mistaken, last year's Oscar she performed.
Oh, cool.
I think I could be lying, but there's the internet for that. People can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, you can hit us up on Twitter and tell us we're wrong all the time. We'd actually prefer it. Did you have a favorite scene in this film or what?
Well, the way it was, like I said, the way it was shot, that opening scene, I very much enjoyed. The other one, it was like a similar tracking shot, but it's when Jenna Malone's character Elizabeth is literally in her hotel room, and it's just going like she's just like spending her day in her fucking hotel room.
Oh, like, well, yeah, you watch the feet, and then you see her on the toilet, and then they use a lot of they use a lot of like extreme close-ups and close-ups, like in a very Tarantino kind of way.
Yeah, trying on her lipstick and everything.
Yeah, that's a great shot, man. And then they basically they do a match shot with that later when she looks in the rear view and she says something to the effect of like, "You're right, it is a good color on me," or something like that.
Mm-hmm. But that will be my second plot hole in this film.
Is the lipstick?
Well, no, because when she's in the hotel room, she does something to her hair that a piece of hair falls out, and she literally just leaves it on the bed.
Okay.
So would that not be if she's kidnapped? And when they check the hotel room and be like, hey, there's some other hair of not anybody.
Well, maybe, but I mean, hopefully what would happen is, because remember she comes back to her room and it's all a mess. So she probably got fucking room service up there to clean that motherfucker up. You know what I mean?
No, because she made the comment saying that her room was a mess and they wouldn't turn down service. And then her other friend that was white said that, oh, I've been having
but the reason the turn down service didn't do it is because when
they flipped
Elizabeth
it around.
She flipped it around. So when she went back, she probably flipped that over. Anyway, maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong. Maybe the DNA is on the door. Jenna Malone, who, like you said, plays Elizabeth, she's in actually a bunch of films I really, really like. So she's in Tom Ford's Nocturnal Animals, Neon Demons by Wendell Wraith, which is like one of my favorite directors. She was in Donnie Darko, which this is interesting. So Donnie Darko she was in, which was produced by McKendrick. And then she was in The Messenger, which was produced by Mansfield. So, and she's in Life is a House, which is also a really great film with, what's his name? It'll come to me. Anyway, so I'm wondering if that's how she got into this film, as she had worked with both of the producers before.
I don't know. She was also in Batman versus Superman.
This is true. I saw that, but I didn't put it on my list because it's not really a fucking movie I would have watched, right? So.
And, one of your favorite films, she was in Sucker Punch.
Yes. Sucker Punch is cool. It's a cool film, man.
But you didn't mention it, so I figured I would.
I'm glad you did. I mean, that's Miller. We already talked about Sucker Punch.
You mean Snyder?
Snyder, sorry, not Miller. I got Miller on the brain. It's Miller time. So Jack Houston that plays Jasper, this guy's got, okay, so first off, I'm like looking at this guy, I'm like, oh, I've seen this actor before. So he's in The Irishman, he's in Ben-Hur, he's in American Hustle. He had a great role on Boardwalk Empire. Did you ever watch Boardwalk Empire?
No, it is on my.
You should watch it, man.
Here.
It's good. It's like it's as good as like Sopranos and stuff like that, especially the first couple seasons. Anyway, I digress. So then I do a little bit of digging, and I find out Jack Houston. I'm like, why does that name sound familiar? Well, his aunt is Angelica Houston, which makes his grandfather John Huston, who's like the super famous writer and director of like wrote Sergeant York. He's writer and director of The African Queen, multiple Oscar nods, multiple Oscar wins. And I found some Canadian content. His great grandfather is a Canadian actor who then moved to the United States, Walter Huston, who was from Toronto. But on his mom's side, his mother is Lady Margot Cholamendre or something like that. Like the guy's like aristocracy all the way up to like the Rothschilds and stuff like that on his mom's side, plus this like fourth or fifth generation like Oscar winning acting family. I'm just like, oh, okay, man, like you got a hard knock life, eh, buddy? I know I like to pick on like these fucking people that have like grown up in these goddamn dynasties.
Like, okay, I don't know what to say to it. I'm like, hey, you don't pick your family, right?
Well, and you clearly don't pick a different career than your family when that's what they're in the entertainment business.
You're telling me if your parents were high-end Hollywood, you wouldn't be like,
I'd just be rich, bitch. I could just like fucking cruise around and just do whatever I wanted. I wouldn't even have to work.
There's no fucking way. You'd be like, I'm at the Viper Room, if that's even a thing anymore. You're like, don't you know who my dad is?
I just wear like a picture around my neck of like my family. I'm like, these are very important people. So would you recommend this film to anybody, or like what did you think of it? What's your general takeaway? I feel like we haven't really talked about that much.
Like for me, I enjoyed it, right? And
it's not bad, right? Like it's not horrible.
And yeah, it's just again, I think the marketing for it, the trailer wise, hit it. Like this movie itself, like it's one of the films that wasn't released because of COVID.
Yep.
But it was #1 on rentals across the board when it did get released through Prime, Apple, Fandango, Google Play. Like there was a lot of people that just rented it and watched it. So
well, I've got that. Like it probably made 8 million just in video on demand. Like I think in the first couple of weeks. So that like people were watching the goddamn movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't know if it was released in theaters, if it would have had a bigger audience, because I think that this film would have gone word of mouth if it was released, right?
And as we've discussed on the show before, is like it's hard to really know, like other than like Rotten Tomatoes, it's hard to really know how many people are watching things, because you get maybe some initial numbers like you just quoted on the first week, but like how many people are still watching it? How many people are gonna now listen to this podcast and they're gonna be like, oh my god, I gotta go fucking watch this movie like right now. And then
that was
gonna, like drive up the fucking Apple stock, buy some Apple stock before you listen to this episode.
I was gonna say, you did a pretty good John McClane there. Come on, come up to the coast.
Come up to the coast. We'll
watch little Annabelle.
And it always goes back to Die Hard.
Always. But yeah, like I think, would I watch it again? I'll be honest, probably not. But if I was a filmmaker or trying to make a film, like I would fucking deep dive on some of the choices that were made, because they had really good choices in terms of camera angles and how wide the camera shot was, and their decisions on these longer scenes, right? It wasn't cut fast. Like this movie was allowed to breathe a lot.
Like long shots,
Yeah. Now, yeah, I think
like long shots as in long takes, not a long shot necessarily. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. So I would recommend it because it is enjoyable, like, and the performances are well done, right? Like,
is there anything you feel could have been done to like pump it up a bit, other than the trailer stuff that you already talked about?
I think, and I don't know if it's just in terms of budget, but I think once it was,
I think they actually did pretty good. So it's $10 million budget. It looks good. Like
no. I mean, yes, but I don't know if it budget constraints. But once it was established, because at the beginning, like if you didn't watch the trailer, like I'll be honest, this is the first movie that we've done that my wife watched it with me. But
Oh
she
wow.
can't. I know,
Bring in the Vegas together.
I
Dun,
know,
dun, 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 dun,
I
dun,
I
dun,
know. It
dun,
was.
dun, dun, dun,
She was like,
dun.
it was hilarious because she was like, because she came in
If you
after.
had two boys, you could call them the Venga boys. Do, do, do,
Yeah.
do, do, do.
But she came in after the opening shot. So it was once they were talking in the field, and she was like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And I said, "The movie that we're doing for today."
She's like, "Where's the doll?"
No, she was like, "What is this about?" And I'm like, "Slave." She was like, "Well, that's fucking depressing." Right? And then it took her a little bit because once the cell phone rang, she was like, "When the fuck was there cell phones in the 1800?" I'm
She
like,
thinks it was just like bad production. There, she's like,
"Yeah."
"Come on, what is going
She
on
was like,
here?
"Is this a
Is
Game
this
of
like a
Thrones?
coffee
So it's a
cup in Game of
Starbucks?"
Thrones?"
That's what I was just gonna say. But yeah, can you so we started watching it together, and then she got into it. Uh, but it was the same. I don't know if it was the same criticism or not, but since it was never established how long she was taken,
Yeah,
like what was her family doing at that time? Like once they showed like future tense, it should have just been like going back and forth, like, okay, where's her family searching, right? There was
that's
just
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it was just one comment actually when the general grabbed the cell phone, and he made the comment saying that he kept on it was the husband kept on bringing the daughter out on TV, but
Yes.
she's never getting her back or something like that. But yeah, I would have liked to see the other end too, right?
So, yeah, I think that actually, I mean, I think that's a great little fix. I would have done something kind of similar, except I think I would have spent more time. I'm going to use the word the past. You know what I mean? On the plantation, I would have done more than that, and like I would have just been like, I would have started with kind of like flashbacks, and as we got like closer to the end, start like filling in that what the like the pre like what had happened, and then once you're kind of like, I know what happened, I know where we are, then transition into my ending, and then go like, you know, play the big like operatic music and have like the Django fucking shootout, just like brutal like revenge dish, best served hot and cold BLT style, bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, like
And
I
I would have
think
got fucking creative with that motherfucker. Like, I would have liked to see them do like slave uprising kind of shit, and then just like pulling overseers down off rocks, smashing people's fucking heads open. Oh fuck, man! I think we just fixed the movie.
I don't think, but that's the thing. I don't think it needs to be fixed. Like they obviously made the choices they made, right? But I think it was like we were saying before with the marketing and even myself until I actually researched it, thinking it was Jordan Peele. I thought we were gonna get a fucking Get Out ending
Yeah,
where each person got their comeuppance one by one, right, by her, or the group of them, right, that they kidnapped. Because that was the same thing too that I thought was super weird. That give or take, they kidnapped about 20 people to make their slaves, and at no point did she try to go back for any of them. She just like fucking took off.
yeah, but then the cops show up. She's on the horse, she gets away, and then the cops show up, and then I'm assuming like you see them do the thing to the place and the stuff that,
Well,
hey,
that's the end credits.
I think we've done a pretty good job of like not giving too much away, but according to you, the fucking trailer gives it all away anyway. So don't
Yeah,
watch the trailer, listen to our show.
but the one
Um,
thing I would say that I was surprised to with, which I would have thought was super funny, when she does get away and she has the axe,
yeah,
and then she hops onto what the place is,
yeah.
and those people were shooting each other. Like, I'm surprised she didn't grab the axe and just start ramming on those guys, because obviously she wouldn't have
Oh my
known
god!
either.
Imagine she gets there and you're like, yeah, she's out, and then bang, she gets hit by like a stray cannonball or something and gets
Oh,
knocked off the horse.
like it could have been like literally Night of the Living Dead ending, right? Where she survives but then gets shot by
Yes.
the cops, thinking like, hey, there's a crazy woman on a horseback chopping up people.
So before I go, what I'm going to say is, so I've got a quote here from Henry Stewart from Slant Magazine, which kind of encompasses. I couldn't find a really perfect quote that really satisfied how I felt, but this one's pretty close. This is a film that employs imaginative twists to illustrate that racism that entrenched in American history and society still exists. And I think that's 100% true. I would recommend anybody watch this. It's a good, just throw it on Friday, Saturday night, have a good time. Cinematography's fucking amazing. It's got a good concept. Just don't be too critical, which is crazy coming from me because I'm super fucking critical all the time. Yeah, don't be too critical. Check out Antebellum. It's available on Amazon for free if you've got a membership, or you can rent it on video on demand. That's it for me, Scott. Why don't you take us out of here?
Okay, good. Kris, I need you to do one thing for me.
Okay.
I need you to say, "Hey, everybody, welcome." Okay, because the beginning of the recording screwed up, so I'm just going to catch that and edit it in.
Okay, tell me when.
Okay, 3, 2.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of How'd You Like That Movie?
God, you take bad direction. He said all you had to say was, "Hey, everybody, welcome."
Yeah, it's easier sometimes to edit in this whole sentence than it is to edit it in like halfway through. So I can give you the break one if you want to. So anything for us, Rod, that you wanted us to talk about right now for the after show stuff? I wonder if we convinced our producer to watch this film.
I'm curious.
He says he's curious, so that's always a good thing.
can hear
Yeah,
him.
Scott, it was fine. You know what I mean? Like, I was fucking shocked when I saw the Rotten Tomatoes ratings. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, I've seen way worse films get way better ratings than this. I think we've even talked about some of them on our show. Oh yeah, Bill and Ted Save the Fucking Music. Definitely worse movie than this. Definitely better rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I think what screwed this movie over was the marketing. Like, even reading some of the IMDb comments, everybody's like, this movie is so misleading. Like, fuck this movie. I thought it was going to be like a supernatural thing, and it's not. I thought it was going to be this, but it's not. Right? And then if you're going in thinking one thing and then finding out it's another,
I know lots of ladies that have left with that exact same thing going through their head. I thought it was going to be one thing, and it was not.
if you say so.
So yeah,
But
what do we got coming up?
we well,
We're doing Mortal Kombat, I think, next week, aren't we?
yeah, Mortal Kombat, then Mean Girls, then Nobody.
Nobody. So in about a week, we got to start picking movies again. that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like the
I
hardest
think
part of this job.
after after Mean Girls.
Yeah,
I'd
probably
say.
after Mean Girls, we should start picking stuff so we can get our stuff out. Hey, I'm gonna stop the video. Okay, are we good?
Yeah. Yeah.